Joining me now from Sydney is the head of the Fireys Union, Leighton Drury. Leighton, you've just heard the Deputy Premier, John Barilaro, admit that there has been, he didn't call it mismanagement, but incompetence on behalf of his government and forestry and national parks for having a culture, as he called it, where they have not cleared the fuel ahead of this bushfire season. What's your view on how the New South Wales government has handled this?
Well, I suppose I've got a different view on that, Shari, and that is, you know, since they've got into power, they have cut budgets that has led to the problem that we are now seeing. So we've seen the stymieing of Fire Rescue New South Wales's budget, which has led to less professional firefighters now than we have in 2011. They took 100 park rangers out of the system over the last couple of years. There's still 100 positions short. And we've led with the worst bushfires crisis we've ever seen. I mean, look, people need to start joining the dots here. Like, you know, fire services in this state you don't turn them on overnight. They are a long-term investment in making sure that our communities are safe and that we reduce fires and we minimise the impact of emergency disasters, whether they be fire or flood, on the community. And if you stop funding these things, well, then I say this to you, we've got a scorecard for 2019-20 that says we've lost over 20 lives in New South Wales. We've lost over 2,000 homes, millions of hectares lost, and we are not even to the end of the fire season. It's not a scorecard you'd put forward as saying, hey, we've done a good job this season. Now, the only thing I agree with Mr Barilaro is we need a Royal Commission into this, because I agree with him. Agencies shouldn't be looking at themselves and going, hey, what did we do right or wrong? Because I tell you what, those things get shuffled under the carpet reasonably quickly. I think we need an absolute overview of this, a federal overview, the interoperability between not only the two fire services in New South Wales, but how they play with other states, between all levels of government, local, state, cross-state, and then obviously into federal. And we might get some answers about why this state has been basically crippled. And I say, I'm not trying to dramatise this. We've been crippled since August last year. These fires have started in August last year and we are still seeing them burn today. Now, that is not a scorecard the state government can put up and go, we've done all we can do. Because guess what? They haven't. They have failed this community of New South Wales for the last 8 years. And it should be absolutely shown up.
In terms of some of the operational decisions that the Rural Fire Service has made, what do you think has been problematic during the fires this summer?
Look, I'll precurse this. This is not about decisions that people make day to day. And I am not judgmental of the decisions that people make day to day. But we need to absolutely look in hindsight, because it's the only way that you learn. And absolutely look back and go, did we put too much fire in the ground? Are we doing the right thing around hazard reductions? Should we be professionalising how we do hazard reductions rather than relying on our great volunteers? That opens the window up for burning throughout the week, throughout that non-fire season.
So just explain the problem there. You're saying your volunteer fireys have to do the hazard reduction, then they can only do it on the weekend, and if it's too hot on one particular weekend, then it might be cancelled or delayed indefinitely and it doesn't happen, whereas if professional firefighters do it, they can do it on the Monday, if the weather's not right, on the Tuesday, on the Wednesday and the Thursday. That's why you're arguing that Fire Rescue New South Wales should do some of or take control of the hazard reduction.
Oh, look, it's predominantly done by volunteers, and the reality is they obviously work Monday to Friday in a lot of their jobs. And, you know, the weekend is the best time to do that. And, you know, you've got to book these things in advance. And, you know, if it's either too wet or too dry, you can't get the burn done. Now, obviously, when you've got a professional workforce, whether that be Fire Rescue for New South Wales or national parks or state mitigation crews, there's a number of different organisations out there that do it. Obviously, you open up that window and get more burning done. Now, we've seen what's occurred. Mr Barilaro, I think, nailed this point, is that we didn't get enough burning done, and why are the targets set where they are? Now, my BFOs, my bushfire officers, we've only got a few of them. One of them has got carriage of all the bush between, this is in our fire district, between Gosford and the Queensland border. That's the sort of area that we're talking about. He can get about 10 burns done a year. Now, that's why we've led to half the north being burnt out and half the south being burnt out. Now, if the government thinks that this is appropriate, it's not. And the community needs to be well aware, and this is what a Royal Commission will bring out. A Royal Commission will turn around and go, what have you done in the fire service? Not this year, but for the past 8.
Yeah. Now, Leighton, just moving on, the volunteer firefighters have been absolute heroes of the country over the past 2 months. We can't ever express our gratitude enough. They are just incredible. But do you think there have been any problems with how the RFS has looked after their volunteer firefighters?
Oh, look, I think that's coming out in news reports. Now, they're obviously not my members, but certainly we work with them on a day-to-day basis. We are on the front line with them every single day through this bushfire process and the day-to-day work that we do together. They don't have the right breathing apparatus for work in smoke-filled environments, whether that be, the P2 to P3 masks that was recently campaigned on, whether it be normal breathing apparatus, whether it be their own personal protective clothing, which they generally only get issued one set with. Do they have the right trucks? I'm not going to dance on people's graves here, but in Victoria, one of the recommendations was that we have roll bars in fire trucks. Now, we've seen a lot of trees come down on trucks. Certainly 5 of ours have been destroyed in fire rescue. We've had tragedies in the RFS. Where is the RFS failing its members? And I'm not having a shot at Mr Fitzsimmons here. But what we need to look at this, and a Royal Commission will hopefully identify these things about where we need to go in the fire services in the future. Because it is, like I said before, it is a systematic investment in making sure that not only our firefighters are safe, but our communities are safe as well.
So you're saying particularly spending money on those roll bars around the fire trucks could have helped when some of the trucks roll and maybe saved lives, according to the outcome of the Victorian Royal Commission? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, look, they're like the roll bars that you put in racing cars, and, when they obviously roll over, it protects the cabin inside. But it goes further than obviously just roll bars. We have cabin protection systems. Fire rescue are running around in trucks that are made in 1990. That have no cabin protection systems, and we put them in the fire environment, and we show these graphic pictures of them burning to the ground. Well, what are we expecting here? This is the year 2020. We should have had plans in place to make sure that our trucks, every single one of them, to protect the workers that I represent, and certainly the RFS volunteers, to make sure they've got a safer working place as they can. And cabin protection systems, roll bars, the latest state-of-the-art technology, automatic vehicle location. This should be just standard, not a nice to have. Yeah. This is a must have.
Yeah. And why? Just very last question, Leighton. Why do you think money hasn't been spent on this? And I understand you have some information that money has been spent on giving pay rises to executives. So at that executive level, is that the case?
Oh, look, I mean, pay rises always work well to the top end of town. We all know that. What I know is that, we're 400 professional firefighters short in New South Wales today. And that's not to deal with the crisis that we're at. That is to get bums on seats today. And now the top end of town, like that upper management, sure, they got some great pay rises. Good luck to them. But let's be very clear. New South Wales firefighters, are one of the lowest paid firefighters in the country. Let's be clear about that. We have the largest firefighting force in in Australia. We have 6,500 professional firefighters, and they're some of the lowest paid in the country. Now, that should be addressed, but putting that aside, we're 400 short. 400 short. Imagine 400 extra firefighters on the front line over the last 6 months. Now, we called for this over 4 months ago, and the government, has been stonewalling that, has been ignoring that. Well, I say this to Gladys again, I say this to David Elliott. Have a look at the figures. You are short. You do not have enough firefighters on the ground. You need to start reinvesting appropriately in fire rescue in New South Wales. There is nearly 1 million people in New South Wales now than there was when you took power. And yet we do not have any more professional firefighters. That stat alone should absolutely scream, alarms to the community.
Leighton, Drury, appreciate you joining me tonight. Thank you very much, and appreciate your input as well.
Thank you.